My name is Eric Bowd. I am here actually from Eau Claire. I drove up today to present here. And my company is Rover Manufacturing Solutions. I started it about 3.5 years ago when I got laid off actually from a job. My background is in manufacturing engineering. I was working at a company doing all of their kind of product development, sourcing and stuff, and they ended up shifting their business model on me, which ended up with me getting laid off. And so I started a business. Because what I had noticed while I was going to school, was that there is a lot of misunderstandings and lack of information in the manufacturing industry, specifically with kind of small to mid-sized businesses. Large corporations have massive manufacturing operations, but small business owners, even medium-sized business owners, often don't have a lot of expertise in manufacturing because they start with this really good idea. Oftentimes a business person or somebody that's been in an industry for a long time, they have this great idea, they know it's going to solve a pain, and they know it's going to bring them some money, but then they get to this point of, how do I turn that into a reality? Maybe they're able to get a patent, maybe they're able to get some prototypes and things made, but there's this gap or this maze from, how do I take this prototype, this idea, and actually turn it into a physical reality? So there's all sorts of things. You've got the manufacturing, you've got different cultures if you're trying to manufacture overseas, there's quality things, things that a lot of people don't really understand. And then there's a lot of traps kind of along the way too, whether it's scams, whether it's dealing with a company that's completely taking advantage of you because they know that you have no idea what you're doing. All sorts of things like that. So I started the business to help people actually navigate through this maze of manufacturing so that they can get to the end result of having a physical product that they can sell and be successful for their business. Like I said, my background is in manufacturing engineering. What the business does essentially is that we will partner with companies or we will coach companies on how to get through this process. So whether that's a small team that can't afford a staff of employees to go out and do it, we'll come in and actually help manage a lot of that process for them, kind of as a contract manufacturing department or sourcing department. Or we'll come in and we'll actually train their team if they've already got kind of a supply chain team but not a whole lot of experience with some of the new product development, some international sourcing and things like that. We'll come in and actually train teams as well. So specifically, we help companies with their manufacturing is the gist of things, but getting into things a little bit more specifically, the key things that we do are actually connect people with factories, connect people with manufacturers, resources to get products where they need to go through this process, as well as solving problems. I do have a background in quality improvement, things like that. If there's an issue with actual production, coming in and helping people resolve that, fixing processes. If anybody's familiar with like Lean and Six Sigma, it's essentially, again, quality improvement, ways to get rid of waste within a company. Six Sigma is more focused on statistics. I am a very nerdy engineer. I love running the math. I am not an actuary, but I do love doing a lot of the statistical process improvement and things like that. So helping solve problems like that. And then I also am fluent in Mandarin Chinese, and so a lot of what I do specifically is helping companies that are either dealing with a factory in China or wanting to find a factory in China, or trying to improve that. I also have a network of other people that speak just about every other language that you can imagine. So I know people off the top of my head that are fluent in Korean, Japanese, Spanish, German, Italian, with all sorts of different backgrounds too. So I had a guy reach out to me a few months ago that was like, I really need an Italian speaker that's a computer programmer and I cannot find one. I was like, my brother-in-law is actually a computer programmer that speaks Italian. So obviously my background is in Chinese, so that's where a lot of what I do focuses, but for companies that are manufacturing in other locations too, we've been doing some stuff in Mexico and other places as well, so it's not just limited to China. Some examples of projects, obviously that's kind of a lot to take in, so what does that actually look like for a company? So one of the big things, I also apologize, this is darker than it originally was, so hopefully you can see that. So a company that wants to build a new product. So new product development is one of the common things. This particular situation was a company that was selling AV equipment. They noticed that their market didn't have a specific solution for something that they wanted. In this case, it was actually something that was going into schools to help people that are hard of hearing. And so I worked with them to develop a brand new product. We found a factory, got it custom manufactured, and then they're ordering that, and they ended up saving a couple $1 million based on their other quotes that they were trying to get from other places. So lots of new product development, and I've been doing stuff in all sorts of different industries that way. Another situation is more focused on the Chinese side of things. So lots of companies will be working with the manufacturer, and because they don't have a whole lot of experience in manufacturing, they'll say, hey, I need this done. Their factory, especially in China, all they'll ever hear is, yes, we can do that. That's not necessarily always true. So this company had been beating their head against a wall for 6 months trying to get a quality problem solved. I had no idea what was going on because they actually were engineers and they understood like it theoretically should work, but our factory is just not getting this. And so they actually hired me to fly out to China with them, and they didn't tell their factory that I spoke Chinese, because the engineers in China were also in the room, and they were rattling away about why it couldn't be done and everything, but then the poor translator over there doesn't speak engineer. And so they speak Chinese, but they're like, I don't know how to, translate this engineering technical issue into English. And so it's the classic example of, the engineers are saying, we can't do this, this is impossible to do. And the sales guy's like, yeah, we'll figure it out, it's fine. And so that was what had been happening for 6 months. And so I just sat in, listened to the conversation without them realizing that I understood what was going on. And then I was able to pull the client aside, because I did have the engineering background, and say, this is what they're frustrated with, this is what they're saying they can't do. But if we change this, then that will get around the problem. And so, utilizing the Mandarin and foreign languages to kind of resolve some of those quality issues is another common project that we do. And then the other thing being kind of quality training. So Lean and Six Sigma training, I certify people in green belt and black belt and different things like that. I am a Six Sigma black belt. But I do feel strongly about trainings like that. A lot of the ones that are out there are really, really boring. Anybody that is a statistician or really likes statistics in college would love a Six Sigma class, but the majority of people do not like college statistics. And especially companies that are trying to improve, they're trying to train their employees in quality improvement. They're sending people that hated math in college into a college statistics course and expecting them to absorb everything and be super excited, and it's really just not, unless you can make it more applicable. So that's something when I teach these classes, I feel really strongly about trying to make it as applicable as possible and as fun as possible. And so instead of, sitting people down and pulling cards out of a hat and telling them why this probability is important, we focus more on, fun ways to actually learn things. So I designed a simulation where you actually use statistical principles to survive in a zombie apocalypse kind of a situation. And so that ended up being a lot of fun. There's a picture of the zombie that everybody was shooting. But, more of a fun situation where the employees that come out of that are actually thinking, like, that made sense. Whenever I teach a class, I want people to walk out of there saying, that makes sense, and I understand how that can be applied in more than just this really abstract kind of statistical way. So I started the company about 3.5 years ago with a background in engineering, and so there were some struggles along the way, and I think it's always nice to hear about entrepreneurs that didn't have everything go their way. But anyway, one of my big struggles starting out was I was really uncomfortable speaking. I'm actually a natural introvert and hated talking to people, and I've had to really come a long way with that. Especially in presenting in different things. Originally my slides were just text everywhere. Nobody ever wanted to read anything. And so figuring out how to communicate better was one of the struggles that I've had to overcome. Figuring out pricing structures. I knew nothing about selling anything, and so figuring out how to do work where I was actually getting paid and not getting taken advantage of was another thing that I struggled with for a long time. And then I did move out here relatively recently. It's been about a year now. Moved out here to the Midwest, originally from Utah mostly. So moved out here, and so that's been kind of a fun experience, restarting my business from scratch and building a network from nothing. So yeah, that's kind of overall the summary of everything, and I'll answer this question when you ask yours.
Excellent. Let's give Eric a round of applause for